Hello, Paula. Let's get straight to your portfolio review. And the first picture really grabbed my eye, full of color, full of smiles and warmth. And I think this is really, it could be a flawless picture, and I'm struggling to find anything that I would change. It's a happy shot and it makes me smile. I think you did a fantastic job with this shot. And really, I love how it's not centered. You have a nice rotation of the frame. Like I'm a stickler for architectural straightness usually, but that's more for buildings. When you have something like this, where you're having people in a scene with that's full of life and so on, you do want the sort of quirkiness of maybe like a slight rotation of a square or rectangular object. So I think you've composed this really nicely. You have, these two people are looking in the same direction, same thing, but the person in the middle is looking straight in the camera, and I think that's very effective. I can't really say I would change anything. It's an awesome shot. Really good work. Okay, so let's get to your next shot. And my initial assumption, I can't see it all. Yeah, so I think we have just the slightest amount of camera shake. And it's not because the picture's out of focus, it's perfectly focused. It's just that it may have been a situation where your shutter speed was not fast enough. In order to fix that, simply use a higher ISO. Excuse me. So if you're, for example, when you're photographing a, a subject that is like this, where it's two-dimensional, it's just the surface, you can get away with a lower f-stop. You don't have to worry about f8. You can use the lowest f-stop number. That's perfectly fine. And by doing so, that'll automatically give you a faster shutter speed when you're using aperture priority. And if that still fails to give you a perfectly sharp picture, increase your ISO. Now, a lot of people say, oh, I don't want to use auto anything. I want to use full manual. And that's great if you can do that. But I would suggest auto ISO for situations where you're not completely sure what level of darkness it is outside and whether you can judge what ISO is appropriate for the level of light. Okay, now as for composition, what I see is a situation where I'd prefer to have less space down at the bottom, and I'll tell you why. If this is going to be a central element, like we would say that's the primary subject, and maybe this could be a secondary subject, we want the primary subject usually to be at the intersecting point of the rule of thirds. Now, it may be hard for you to see, but on Lightroom CC here, I have a rule of thirds grid when I'm in my crop mode. And right now, I'm cropping so that the intersecting point sort of is in the middle of this half moon, this crescent. Okay, so let's crop that. Now this would be a little bit more appropriate with regards to classical compositions. It's not, of course, critical, but it may feel a little bit better. Let's go to the original. I'm sorry. When you crop, this is the original. And it's good, but I feel that when we sort of intersect that point there with the main subject is a little bit better. Okay? Otherwise, really interesting texture to this picture. Okay, next picture. This is very dramatic, and I think it's an excellent portrait because we don't really know what's going on with her face. Is she concerned? Is she afraid? Is she thinking? We have no idea. So I really like this. I think you did a great job. Now, the only thing I would suggest is just to get rid of this little white spot here and possibly this white spot here. Now that's a real small minor thing that's almost irrelevant. However, sometimes it's the small things that really improve a shot. So we're just going to crop a little bit lower. In fact, let's just go down to crop at the eyes here. It's not perfectly at the eyes, but the intersecting point for the rule of thirds is now where it should be, sort of in the middle of the head. Now, with regards to this spot here, I would be immediately tempted just to crop in like this. And the reason why is I like to have the intersecting point, as I said, somewhere along the head of the person. So by moving in, we're able to sort of follow the classical rule of thirds scenario for cropping for people. Okay? So otherwise, I would say keep it black and white. I love the angles. The composition is very dynamic, and I think you have a real winner. Good work. Okay, so let's get to your next one. And what I feel for this picture is we just have to have a little bit more blacks, reduce the blacks a little bit more, just to give it a bit more punch. So watch what happens. I'm in Lightroom CC, but blacks adjustments are in pretty much all software. So let's try this. When we decrease blacks, we add a little bit of mood to the picture. Okay, let's look at a before and an after. It's very minimal. However, with the blacks, we're adding a certain amount of drama that may not be there in the first place. Okay, so for this picture, I think that's pretty much all I would change. I do know that, let me think here. Let me just do a quick little test. I was going to suggest this may work also as a vertical. Yeah, it's good. So I would think that you did the right thing with your crop, and also you could get away with a vertical as well. So for any, if you ever wanted to frame it for any reason, then you could go either vertical or keep the crop as it is. And yeah, great work. It's certainly a lot of expression in the man's face. Okay, let's get to your next shot. Now, when I saw this picture, crows are usually very, what would you say, they're a symbol in photography and art. And whenever we have a symbol of a crow or a raven, it's usually more on the darker or gothic side. To that end, I would tend to make this a black and white photo myself. Now, your colors are actually quite interesting. I like them. Because this is a dark shot where we don't see much detail at all of this bird, I would tend to probably make it a black and white. Now, there's a number of ways to do that, of course. In Lightroom CC, a really quick way is just to go to color and then go to black and white. And that is the quickest and easiest way to do it. However, we also have black and white channel mixers. And what that does is it allows you to alter what was color, and it still is actually, although even though this is black and white, there's still color underneath the picture. So whenever you alter a channel like yellow, or let's go to green, do you see only certain areas of the picture being adjusted? Let's go to blue. See how there was blue sky up there, and you're able to selectively only alter the blues with regards to doing your black and white mix. Now this is a little bit of an advanced technique, and it takes a bit of practice. Let's say that you don't want to do that. You could just go down to presets, go to black and white, and simply experiment with Lightroom's presets. And we can just go through and decide which one we like best. Now usually presets are a little bit on the, what would you say, the amplified side. Sometimes they look a bit silly. So if we just want a straight black and white, which I think is good in this situation, this sort of adds, I think, a little bit more drama to the picture. Now, we also could slightly increase the shadows if you wanted to see a little bit more, like see how that popped out the bird's beak? And if we reduce the highlights, then what happens is we've evened out the picture a little bit more. And that may be appropriate depending on the mood that you're trying to set with your photo. Finally, this may be a little bit distracting to me. It's definitely not critical. I may be tempted just to crop that out, something like that. Okay, I think it's an interesting shot, and it's certainly very moody, which is exactly what you want. You want your pictures to to emit an emotion always. Okay, I believe that is all 5. Great work, Paula. I thoroughly enjoyed going through your photos. Thanks so much.